Whenever you've got elements moving around in a tactical environment, it's very important to have secure comms. And in a professional military environment, a lot of times you'll have encryption, you'll have frequency hopping. There are a lot of things you can do to get secure comms. But those systems can sometimes fail. Sometimes the encryption fails if the enemy is able to break it, or maybe the enemy just needs to hear that burst of transmission and they're able to triangulate your location, so you want to minimize that as well. Or sometimes, the encryption and frequency hopping is sometimes technically challenging, and people are human and systems break down, and sometimes it just doesn't work, and then you're left with unsecured comms. But there's some things we can do to make sure that we still have secured comms, or at least more secure comms, even when we don't have those advanced technical things, or if you're on the civilian side and you can't get encryption. You can do a few different things to minimize the ability for the enemy to intercept your communications. Now, the first thing that we have to do is we have to understand that radio communications are typically done via line of sight, and the person emitting a radio transmission is going to be sending that direction in every direction. Most antennas are omnidirectional, meaning that yes, he's able to talk to his buddy, but it's also going over here, and it's also going over there, which means that anyone in any direction is able to pick up on that transmission. So the first thing you can do is you can take these radios, and oftentimes, assuming that your radio is able to do it, you can reduce the power or the wattage. This reduces the power of the actual transmission so that you're not pushing it quite as far. It makes it peter out a little bit so that the enemy, if they're farther away, they're not going to be able to pick it up. This may force elements to communicate to stay a little bit closer, but that will enable you to have more secure comms rather than blasting out at like 5 to 10 watts and everybody's able to hear it. The second thing you can do is you can use terrain to your advantage, because as we said, these radios are mostly line of sight. So if you duck behind a berm or a hill or some sort of ravine, this is going to inhibit the transmission. So if you know that you've got buddies to your left and right, you can still talk to them, but if you know the enemy is roughly in that direction, getting up and hugging the side of a berm will ensure that the transmission stays on this side, and you're basically casting transmission shadow over here so the enemy will not be able to identify it. This is also helpful if the enemy is trying to jam you. Sometimes you get jamming, which is essentially just a very large transmission that is trying to override anything you're doing. If they are trying to jam you, you can use terrain to block that line of sight jamming, assuming that it is line of sight and it's not like some tower high up, but using the terrain will prevent you from being jammed, and you may be able to get some transmissions out. And with these little techniques, you can do a lot to just really reduce your radio signature so you can still talk without being as obvious, without being as compromised as if you're just blasting full power in every direction. And if you're just a little bit smart about it, a little bit goes a long way.